Namaste. Amen and blessed be. Each month we come across a different topic for worship at Tapestry. And for the month of December, we'll focus on the topic of God. That word means a great many different things, especially for Unitarian Universalists. As we head into this conversation about God, we should know that the sort of omniscient, omnipotent God is not so much what we're talking about this month. Decades ago, Unitarian Universalism, and honestly, much of Christianity, let go of that all-powerful man with the white beard in the clouds that doles out punishment and rewards. Most of us left that God long ago. These days, some of us maintain a more nuanced notion of divinity. Maybe it's a creative force that pervades the universe. Maybe it's the seed of love that connects us deep down. Maybe it's the interconnectedness that mystics have told us about for as long as we have recorded history. Maybe it's the sacred divine mystery. As we talk about God this month, from the very beginning, I want to be clear that the word does not mean one thing. In particular, it doesn't exclusively mean the omniscient, omnipotent, conscious male that resides above all creation. Because very few people believe in that notion of God, and I can't defend it. For many Unitarian Universalists, though, none of those other notions of God seem true either. For some of us, God does not exist. Some of us are atheists. Now, occasionally, I hear people describe atheism as not believing in God. But when you describe it that way, you imply that there really is a God. But these people, these silly, confused people, for whatever reason, don't believe God exists. Maybe this is being picky from your laugh. I don't think it is. Not just a matter of semantics. Language is powerful stuff, especially when we're talking about our religious belief. So rather than saying they don't believe in God, a better way might be to say they believe that God does not exist. Or even better than that, a more constructive version might be that atheists believe that science offers the best tools for understanding our universe. They believe that our world and everything in it abides by laws of physics, science, and nature, even if we don't understand all those laws yet. Most importantly, atheists believe that there's nothing outside of these scientific, material realities. There's nothing supernatural. Now, I don't often preach about atheism explicitly. This is probably the first time that I've defined it here at Tapestry in worship. But a huge portion of what we do at Tapestry aligns perfectly with an atheist perspective. It's just not flying under that banner in big, bold letters. Like the children's story this morning. I can tell you, it is not easy to come up with a message that offers the word atheist in big, bold letters for children. I'm sure they exist, but I was in a pinch this week to find our children's story. But I found a lovely story about the power of community to confront oppressive forces. It's a story about the power of organizing, the necessity of building relationships, and creating a more equitable world. Does it say there is no God? No, it doesn't. But in the story, God isn't necessary for the goodness. And a lot of our worship here is the same. Anytime that we're not praying or talking about God in worship, anytime we invoke reason, morality, humanity, compassion, we're celebrating atheist values the vast majority of the time, and our worship and wider activities at Tapestry are inclusive of atheist views. They're welcomed here, as they are in pretty much every UU church I'm familiar with. But having said that, atheism is still a marginalized opinion in the United States. It's unpopular to the point of being deemed dangerous by some. Not so long ago, we were all very excited to know that finally a black man would be president of the United States. There's been a lot of conversation about having a woman president, lots of asking, are we ready? Having a Catholic leader or a Mormon leader has caused all sorts of hot debate. But can you imagine a person of any race or gender saying God does not exist and getting elected to be president? It's unimaginable. And when an opinion is widely feared or misunderstood in the wider public, it's not enough to implicitly accept it here. A large number of Unitarian Universalists are atheists. And that's not just okay, it's good. Atheism is a valid interpretation of the world, and it fits beautifully with Unitarian Universalist values. Perhaps more than anything, atheists believe in the ability of science to describe the world around us. Both hard sciences and social sciences have supplied humanity with unprecedented understanding of our world. No longer are humans beholden to mythical explanations for natural events. No longer do we derive our ethics from theological speculation. Through reason and experimentation, we have the means to search for the answers ourselves. Atheists believe, and we as Unitarian Universalists believe, that it's irresponsible to dismiss the findings of science in our religious lives. What's true in a house of worship must reflect the truth of the classroom and the laboratory. What's true in our faith must also be true in our mind. Atheists believe, and we believe, that science and reason can't be ignored in church. In fact, they can be embraced, and they can deepen our sense of meaning. I've described some of what atheism is. I also think it's important to talk about what atheism is not, or at least what it's not for Unitarian Universalists. Unfortunately for atheists, their recent popular champions have been bullies. The title of Richard Dawkins' book kind of says it all, The God Delusion. And yes, I have read the book. It's mean-spirited, but it makes some good points. And it fails because rather than having a meaningful dialogue with contemporary theology, Dawkins focuses his arguments on rejecting a really simplistic, antiquated theology of fundamentalist religion. I honestly believe that many of you in this room are better spokespersons than this best-selling author. Because rather than airing your disgust for some pious theologies, you simply say, I believe there is no God. Human compassion? Yes. Mystery and wonder? Of course. Love, creativity, beauty, passion, wisdom? Yes. I believe in all of those things, but God just isn't a piece of the puzzle for me. Unitarian Universalist atheism does not have an agenda to diminish the beliefs of thoughtful, caring people of faith. And Unitarian Universalist atheism is not anti-religious. as a gay man from the Bible Belt, I understand the inclination to be angry at religion as well as any person. I guarantee you. People I know were rejected from their families, and some friends were sent to reparative therapy. Some awful things have been done in the name of religion, and some awful things have been done in the name of science and atheism. Remember, Stalin, Pol Pot were atheists. Remember the role of science in justifying racism in the United States. Remember, science is the backdrop for performing torturous medical experiments on Jews in Nazi-occupied Europe. The naming of atrocities of religion versus science is as unconvincing as it is disturbing. Humans have done horrible, horrible things to one another, and it's often tried to be justified in many, many different labels. But arguing against the horrible things that have been done in the name of religion is not a very compelling argument against God. Being anti-religion here at Tapestry also seems a little bit odd. Some call this a congregation, some call it a church, some stick with community. I think that's the safest. But Tapestry is a religious organization. We gather here as an expression of our beliefs about the universe and how we hope to live our lives as a reflection of our beliefs. It's a religious organization. And being anti-religious between these walls is a little bit like those elected officials who run a campaign trying to convince you how corrupt Washington is. In our tradition, we are diverse in our beliefs. Many affirm atheism, while others are agnostic. Thank you for giving us that option, Wendy. Still others use the word God, but you would only understand what that means by asking them. Their understanding of God or goddess is as varied as the stars in the nighttime sky. And some use other words to name for them what is precious and profound. So I want to explore a little bit the difference between theism and atheism for Unitarian Universalists. Far from a black and white difference, the difference between these two perspectives is very, very thin. I'd say it's razor thin. Does the phrase Occam's razor ring a bell? Some heads nodding. Okay. It's a principle of reasoning that's incredibly powerful. It's as powerful as it is simple. It's named after William of Ockham. He was a Franciscan theologian from England in 1285. It's a long time ago. I want you to remember, though, that he was a theologian with this idea. The principle of Occam's razor states that among competing hypotheses, the one with the fewest assumptions should be selected. More complicated solutions may ultimately prove true, but in the absence of certainty, the fewer assumptions that are made, the better. Basically, he said, when there are two competing answers to a problem, the answer that is the simplest, the one that makes the fewest assumptions, should be chosen. And that little theory, that little logical device has been used for some tremendous leaps in human understanding of our world. Even coming to understand that the sun is the center and not the earth was based on this Occam's razor principle. It says that the simplest explanation is probably the best. And this Occam's razor is what defines the razor-thin difference between theists and atheists in our tradition. I think often I hear theists saying, how can you not be moved by this world. It's incredible and mysterious and awesome and powerful, and how can you just not wonder? But both atheists and theists experience awe and wonder in the world. Anyone who hasn't been blown away by the beauty and complexity of nature needs to get out more often. Both theists and atheists are occasionally stunned by beauty. Just this past Thursday night, in our wisdom circle, I heard an atheist describe one of these experiences for himself. One of these awesome, wonderful experiences. He was hiking outside of Palm Springs and came around a corner face to face with a ram. Locked eyes, steady eye contact for several minutes until that ram's mate and young slowly made their way retreating into a safe hiding place. Then and only then did the ram break his stare and reconvene with his family behind the rocks. What a beautiful moment. Most of us have had our own amazing experiences of staring into the face of God or staring into the face of the universe. And we shiver and we tingle with a visceral response to the sense of awe and respect. But that sense of awe and wonder points in two different directions for atheists and theists. While theists hunger to know what's behind the curtain, what mystery is underneath, behind, and driving this creation, atheists are captured by the universe itself. In our Unitarian Universalist tradition, Occam's razor is incredibly thin. You might say it's imperceptible in seeing the difference between those experiences. That's partially because Unitarians in America have always embraced science. It's not new, and it's certainly not exclusive to atheists. Definitely in the 1900s, we pushed that scientific envelope a little bit more, but from the very founding, we have embraced science. Remember, Unitarians didn't come about as a separate tradition just because they insisted on rejecting the Trinity. They became a new religion because they insisted on using reason to understand ethics and history, to understand the Bible. William Ellery Channing and the early Unitarians said, hold up, we are way too smart as human beings to be taking these things for granted. Then, as much as now, the debate revolved around the Bible. So I want to read you a short quote from Channing from 1819 about what he said about the Bible. He said, "We profess not to know a book which demands a more frequent exercise of reason than the Bible. Its style nowhere affects the precision of science or the accuracy of definition. Its language is singularly glowing, bold, and figurative, demanding more frequent departures from the literal sense than that of our own age and country, and consequently demanding a more continual exercise of judgment." That was 1819. As he shaped Unitarianism as a new American religion, it was clear that we must use reason and science to interpret our religion. What he started was carried deeper by the humanists of the 20th century and today. My point is that the genius of Unitarian Universalism is that belief in God and belief in no God abide together, each valued, each respected, each necessary. We hold the beliefs that we do so that we might live life as well as possible. not to have them judged by others as either worthy or wanting. Beyond God or no God, there is kindness, there is compassion and generosity that we bring daily to our lives and to our world. And I don't intend to diminish the difference between atheism and theism for Unitarian Universalists, but the gray area where we overlap, our shared response of awe and wonder to the universe, our commitment to living lives of meaning and hope, and to honoring the dignity of every person, those gray areas that we share are so much larger than the black and white difference that the words atheism and theism can describe. Amen.